She is come out of the Sundance Lab. She's a local New Mexico filmmaker. Her film Mud or Hash Klishni has won at the Montreal First Peoples Festival and been nominated at the Sundance Film Festival. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show Shaandiin Tome. Hi, Shaandiin.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. And, thanks so much for doing this. I'm just such a fan of your work. And I know Mud played at the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. But before that, you and I met at, it must have been 2017 at the Native Forum party at Sundance. And it was such a fun time. I know Jane Myers was there, and Rizal Benally was there, and Gabe Abeda, and it was such a fun time. And that was, the first time you and I really got to connect and become friends. Do you remember anything about that night, or? Um,
Yeah, I totally do. I very distinctly remember it. It was a fun night. It was my first year at Sundance. I was there with the Full Circle Fellowship, which was a youth fellowship for the Indigenous program at Sundance. So I was there with three other fellows, Taylor Begay, Megan Babbitt, and Devin. I can't remember his last name, but yeah, we were just there watching films and exploring the festival. And I remember um, the native program threw like that huge party at the end, and it was my first time kind of seeing a whole bunch of like natives in film together, and it was really great and beautiful. Even though we were like yelling over the music to like talk to each other, it was great to meet you guys there and meet other people there, and know that there's like native filmmakers, native film people in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and yeah, like really exciting for sure.
I know as a child growing up, kind of all over the place, but spending some time on the Navajo Res, and that your grandmother was a real avid film fan. That as a child you saw a lot of films as a child.
Yeah, my grandma, I'm sure you got the info from my mom, but yeah, my grandma loves music. And so apparently when my mom was a kid, she used to play a whole bunch of different film scores for them in the mornings. And their weekend getaway was like to go to the movies and kind of like spend a whole day there. And I think my mom passed a similar tradition down to like me and my brothers. And we used to see movies all the time, or when we used to go visit my grandma during the summer, it was like play outside for a few hours, like get way too hot and want to just stay inside where the swamp cooler was and throw on a whole bunch of VHS tapes and watch too many movies with my cousins. So, yeah, my grandma was always an advocate for film, for like everything. I remember watching Smoke Signals as a kid too, and my cousins and I like would have too much fun like recreating moments and doing silly stuff. So yeah, I remember all of that.
I know I watched the film The Great Unknown, which is I guess a 48-hour contest to make a film, and you directed someone else's script. But in the credits, I noticed that your brother was credited, Natani was credited with the sound. So the whole family's in a film movement, you think, or?
Yeah, I feel like back then my brother so both of us went to the University of New Mexico at the IFDM program. And so he went first. He's a year older than me, and I kind of followed in his footsteps. And I think since we were younger, we always kind of wanted to make films. And we had we stole my mom's VHS camera. I think like every kid from the 90s has a story now, but we stole our mom's VHS camera. I actually recently, during the pandemic, recovered those tapes and digitally scanned them all. So that was fun to rewatch what we made as kids. And my brother and I would both my brothers and I would like always be making stuff. And so I think it was great to have like a creative partner and things. And Natani also did the music for Mud too. So he's still doing sound and music, but not as much. I'm like hoping to like wrangle him back into it for sure.
Is that?
I mean, I love the family aspect of it, as you know, but I was gonna say, you know, I've known your mom. Your mom actually came to the fest maybe in 2015, because our moms are good friends, so that was really fun. But really, I think what I really am interested in is, how did you get into the Sundance Labs, and so how would a filmmaker go about getting into that? And I know that you also worked for Sundance under Bird Running Water for the Native program, or you interned?
Yeah, I was an intern. It wasn't as much for the Native program, it was for the programming department. So I was there for like in LA for like half a year, like kind of just screening the films with them and like learning about like the internal process behind the scenes. So that was super fun. A lot of films, a lot of great films, a lot of not so great films, but it was kind of great to see what people turned into Sundance, which was like just absolutely everything. But yeah, to get into the program, I guess there's like several different routes. Sundance Institute has a whole bunch of different programs at this point. How I got in was through the Indigenous program. And so they have different fellowships that are catered towards early career, mid-career, late career, and spanning different things, like whether that's music, editing, directing, documentary, like literally anything that you can think of that involves film. There's probably like some kind of lab or fellowship for it. And they kind of like keep tabs on me and like keep sending me opportunities, which is really nice for them, or nice not for them, for me. But basically it's really nice to be involved in that family. And they're so supportive, and I'm happy to see that they're kind of including other people, and it's not just about like following one single person. They like have a whole entire group that they're looking after, and always looking for new people for sure.
I know you were recognized.
And...
Sorry, go ahead, Lizette.
Oh no, you go, Gary.
I know you were recognized by the New Mexico State Legislature for a kind of a formal achievement in film. How was that?
Yeah, that was kind of strange. I guess I'd never like think that like legislators would like really kind of honor anybody in that way, but especially for film or art, it seems like two completely separate kind of entities. So it was weird to know, but then also like really great to see that they were celebrating those achievements, even though like Mud does seem like a tiny achievement in the grand scheme of things. Like it's just a short film. And so like looking at it, sometimes it feels like, oh, like you don't have to do anything that big for it. But for me to go from like just from college to like making my first short and to have that celebrated in such a big way was a huge honor. And I think it really is like a big motivator, and like how I move forward makes me realize that I have a lot of support behind me, which is I think important for every artist to know, because not a lot of artists, they work from a very internal kind of secluded space. And sometimes it's difficult for them to realize that they have like a whole backing behind them that are really willing to support them.
Now, in these travels of yours and living in Albuquerque, have you had the opportunity to work with Deb Holland?
I actually, yeah, I got to do a doc it was like a short doc for Nat Geo, and that was super fun. It was really weird because I always like say Native community is pretty small in a way, like whether it's like you guys both know my mom somehow, maybe it's just my mom. Like my mom, Deb Holland, basically was like, I know your mom. And then my dad was like, yeah, I knocked on doors with Deb Holland. And so it was like really strange to see like how intertwined we are. But yeah, I got to follow her around before, like when she was campaigning, and then the night that she got elected. And that was super fun and really wild, because I think it went from like maybe like a crew at a time, and then like a few months before, and then like as we got closer to the election, there were so many people following her, and at the night of the election, everybody wanted a lavalier mic on her, but she didn't want like 10 lavalier mics on her. So we were like, can we just like have one, and then we all like share the sound? And like some people were like a little greedy about it and that sort of thing, but it was pretty great to see like the support that was surrounding her too, like really exciting. I also got to ride in like a hot air balloon with her, which is like my first time riding in a hot air balloon, but we were like about to land. And this like just speaks to who she is. She's super calm in like really chaotic situations, but we were like trying to land. And then there was like a minivan that was like stopped right in front, like snapping pictures of us like trying to land. And we were like, get out of the way, move. And like the car was like just about to move. We almost hit the car, and then like our basket landed and toppled over. And she was just like super sturdy and calm, and everybody else was like screaming and like toppling over each other. And she got out and like was totally chill about it.
I know your mom's work with EPIC, Education for Parents with Special Needs. I mean, I know you had an experience as a child with her in the community and such. Did that have an effect on your career and work?
Yeah, I think my mom is really influential to all of my work. I think my whole family is very influential to like how I see the world. My mom, since we were younger, my older brother and my younger brother and I always had like a really strong support, especially when it came to education. And living in Denver, there weren't as many Native students really anywhere. Like there was like maybe a couple inside of the school or like that sort of thing. And so she like really took a parental role to them as well, and other kids within the county, and started advocating for them, and did the same work here in New Mexico. And when she was working with EPICS, really stood for parents knowing their rights and being able to speak on behalf of their children and get them the needs that would allow them to flourish, like whether that was like to the end of high school or like past high school. And I think that's really important, and I think speaks to how she sees the world. She wants people to be treated right, and sees that Native students like weren't being treated right in that situation. And I think it's kind of like a microcosm of like the larger world. Like it shows that like Native people aren't generally treated in the best respect or regard. And I think there is a fight for that. There's a fight for that in film for sure. Right now, there's like a lot of push for Indigenous narrative and like how we see things, and not just like the lens pointed at us, but like how do we show our perspective through that. And I think I take the same approach in my work. Like I want us to be treated in the gaze of like humanity, and see that like we really stand a fighting chance just for like normality. And I think that's really important in like everybody's work. And I think that's where like expression flourishes.
We're talking
Ronaldo Warito Tome. Thank you so much.
We're talking with Shaandiin Tome. Go ahead, Gary.
Oh no, I was just trying to recognize her name. You know who her mom is. I was just trying to acknowledge her. I don't think we mentioned her name. So
yeah, well, that'll be the part where we break and start the next segment. Do you want to kick it off, Gary, or shall I ask a question?
Yeah, you go, Jacques. Thank you.
So, Shaandiin, one thing I've just loved is the way the new Sundance ads have been using so many pictures of you. So has that been fun? Do friends of yours write to you and say, hey, I saw this great picture of you directing a movie on Sundance's website? Or
yeah, I mean, it's kind of silly. Sometimes I don't realize that like my picture like was being used for certain things. Like there was a time when I went to Florida for a workshop, and then some of my friends were like, are you going to be in Florida again? Your picture is being used on like this next thing. And I was like, oh no, I'm not. But yeah, I mean, it's great. I think all of the Native people have like huge like I guess just like they have like great faces and they are very beautiful people. So I think that's why like they constantly are being reused for like the Sundance ads. Like it's not just me, honestly. It's like literally like all the Native people. I think we have like either a great photographer at those events or they just like how happy we look, or I don't know. I always know that we look like we're having a good time. So maybe it's that.
Yeah, I think some of them are such nice shots of you, and maybe you're the one that we know best, so we think, oh, look how many photos of Shaandiin they're using. But I think it's been a ton of fun. So congratulations on that kind of unexpected way of getting your face out there as a filmmaker.
Yeah, it's good to know. Oh, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask about. I know that you've had some mentorships, and one of the more interesting ones, and I apparently you have some contact with Spike Lee. Did you almost went out there, but you've still managed to get some advice and encouragement from the amazing filmmaker Spike Lee. How was that relationship developing?
It was great. I completely unexpected. There's this program called the Rolex Mentor and Prodigy program, and so they kind of go through and through different arts practices find these like incredible mentors. And in film, it's been people like Martin Scorsese, Alfonso Cuarón, Spike Lee, like incredible filmmakers. And so they had Spike Lee this time, and I was there. I went there in January of 2020 to New York to go meet him, along with Christopher Sagelski, Elmaya Tell Feathers, and Kyle Bell. And so we were like the 4 finalists who got to go say hi to him in his office and talk to him. And I was like freaking out the whole entire time, honestly. I was like, oh my God, this is like Spike Lee, like right in front of me. And so we were sitting in his office, and it's probably like smaller than the room that I'm in right now. And it was just like covered in like posters, like Akira Kurosawa, like signed poster, like tons of movies, tons of like old film posters. He was like asking me, like we were walking around his like bigger office, and he was showing me movies like Battle of Algiers. He's like, have you seen this movie? And I'm like, actually, no, I haven't. And he's like getting his assistant to like go print off the scripts. So he's like a total teacher in that regard. He was like printing off a ton of scripts for me. He's like, I want you to read this. Please read this. He signed a book that wasn't his, but it was like a Navajo book about like basketball. And he's like, I just read this book. It's incredible. So he had his assistant go get it and like sent me a nice note and that sort of thing. But like overall, we all got together for dinner that night at this like kind of like mobbish Italian restaurant. And we were just talking about film and like asking him questions. And it was great to go from like reading his biography and like seeing what he was like on paper to like watching his movies and like absolutely thinking that I guess he just pushed like Black film in such a way that I wish like Native film I definitely know Native film is in that space right now, but I think like there's so much potential for Native film in that regard. And so it's just like great to see like an ally in that sense and how he like kind of moves forward and like shifts narratives. And yeah, I didn't win the final fellowship, but I got to go meet him, which was amazing. And he gave me his email and that sort of thing. Kyle Bell was the one who got like the finalist actual like mentor prodigy. And Kyle Bell is an amazing filmmaker too. He's also somebody who has gone through the Sundance Lab, and he's an amazing cinematographer. He's like such an eye for things. And yeah, I know he's doing great things with Spike Lee right now for sure.
Yeah, and I know, I guess every filmmaker like yourself, starting out and you got the number of short films. I guess you just did a skier film in Colorado about snowboarders and stuff. Was that a short film you just accomplished it like a director for hire?
Yeah. So it was more of like a commercial kind of spot, even though it was a bit longer, but it was with this guy named Connor Ryan and then this other snowboarder named Lonnie Koch. And he's also like a climber. And yeah, it was, I mean, like, I kind of grew up in Denver, but my parents like never really thought to take us skiing or snowboarding. And I'm sure it was like super expensive to do with like 3 children. And so, yeah, it was great to like be up there and like kind of filming something that I knew really nothing about, but I knew the aspect of Connor, who's Lakota, and that like we have similar philosophies when it comes to like life and like how we view it. And so to see him talk was like one thing, but to see like his actions and like who he is as a person, like through skiing and like trying to film that and like trying to capture the essence of like all of his really beautiful words in motion was like really challenging and fun. And I was the whole entire crew was able to ski or snowboard. Like that was a requirement for, I guess, the entire crew. But I was like the only one who couldn't. So I was like on a snowmobile behind somebody, or I was like riding the lifts. And I felt, I guess, like like I was better than them because I didn't have to do that. And it made me feel really awful that I wasn't like in the trenches with them. But it was great. Like it was a beautiful shoot. And Connor and Lonnie are such great people.
God, that sounds like so much fun. Being
Jock's our
outdoors.
snowboarder here.
Yeah, just being outdoors, shooting like that, and being kind of trucked into the mountains on a snowmobile. So I guess I have a quick question about making a film here. You did shoot Mud in locally, if I'm understanding right.
In Gallup, yeah.
Great. And so this will probably be where we break, and I'll say we're talking with Shaandiin Tome. And so, Shaandiin, you shot locally for Mud. And so what was that like? Were there a lot of people who supported you and came to your aid once you announced that you were making the picture? Were there a lot of local support systems?
Yeah, I think New Mexico, I guess like obviously is probably the only place that I ever want to film when it comes to like my more personal stories, because I think a lot of my stories do take place in New Mexico, in a place like whether that's like Navajo Nation or Albuquerque or like these places that are very close to me in like my childhood. And yeah, it was great to see the film industry kind of like working in its fullest capacity, even though what I knew about the film industry beforehand was like definitely like bigger budget, like genre Western films that I like worked on as like a PA here. I kind of never saw like this indie side of things and like these much smaller crews kind of like really finding ways to like make themselves known in that space. And so when I first started putting a crew together, I was like kind of like, I don't know if there's the type of people here that like want to work on this film. This is such a small film in the grand scheme of things. And I honestly don't think that some union worker is going to want to work on a film on Navajo Nation or something. And so I guess there's an advantage to that for sure. Like you find these people who might not be as experienced, but have like the same passion as you do, and are really like willing to learn along with you. And like, I wasn't like a professional in that sense either. Like it was my first time directing and writing. And so like it wasn't like I had the answers to everything and that I knew exactly how everything was going to go. Like obviously there's like mistakes that were going to be made. And with Mud, it was like, there's definitely mistakes that happen, but I think we got over them together. And I think that made us like tighter as like a crew. And I still speak to a lot of the people that helped me out on that film, and are like trying to find ways to involve them in stuff that I'm doing on a bigger scale. Because I think to me, what's so beautiful about New Mexico is that you find those people who are so passionate, and you can like really move forward and like kind of create like a little group or like collective with them, and like kind of find a way to make things happen, not just for yourself, but for other projects too. Like if one of them were like, I want to direct something, then I would like be like, okay, like I'm going to get you coffee, or I'm going to do like whatever I can do to like help you out. And I think there's something really nice about that. And I know with like the film industry, like kind of growing here, I like hope that there's those opportunities that are going to be put in like with these like larger studios that really honor that spirit of New Mexico, and show that like we can tell our stories on a grander scale too.
Well, I know you got a screenplay. I can't seem to find the title, and it's probably going to be your first feature, I suspect, or at least that's how you're looking at it now. Is there anything you can leak out to our Film Talk Weekly show here?
It's still very much in the works. I am writing a screenplay that's like titled Debe right now, which means sheep in Navajo. And it's about the livestock reduction that happened in the 1940s on Navajo Nation. And it's through the eyes of a young girl who's about 12 years old, and she's kind of trying to figure out what she wants, and like why she wants responsibilities, and like why she wants to become an adult, and like really fight that experience with her father, and like say like, give me your responsibilities essentially. And she doesn't realize like what that means during the time like where sheep are being massacred within her community. And it's like kind of the polar opposite of like what it means to like become an adult, which is like that slow, I guess just like recognition, or like I can't really say like exactly the words, but just that like you get room to make mistakes essentially, being a kid and wanting to become an adult. And during like a time like this, there's not room for those mistakes, and like every mistake that you have or make could potentially be like harmful to like your family or your community. And so I'm working on that right now. I'm a few drafts in. It's definitely not anywhere near done. And I know that it will be expensive probably to film. And honestly, maybe not even my first feature, because and this is like my mind talking, so you can tell me to stop. But basically I know that like it's impossible to film like children and animals and like all that sort of thing. And a lot of people don't want to take that risk on like a first time feature. So I'm writing other stuff too. Just that's the one that I am really passionate about and want to make for sure. And I'll find a way to make it.
Lizette?
That sounds beautiful. I'm really excited about it. And I guess what are some other projects that are making? Is there any way that our listeners can help you in your endeavors making these new films? I know it sounds like something really interesting and that I would hope to have made.
Yeah, I guess like I'm working on a short right now that I'm hoping to film sometime this year. Like I guess just seeing if the schedule allows for it. And then just like working on like kind of more commercial projects to like keep money flowing and like paying the bills and that sort of thing. But yeah, right now like nothing really substantial in the way of like helping out personally, but I think there's always room to like I guess just like see what I'm up to like on my website, which is my name and then .com, and then I don't really post on social media anymore or like get on Facebook that much. So I was like really about it for a while there, and now I'm like kind of over it and just trying to like live my life too.
I think that's
it's important to have a healthy balance there. I think that with like film and everything, people expect you to be on social media, but it's, you know, it takes a lot of creative energy to do that, and then also with your creative endeavors?
It's kind of wild, like how much people contact you through like Instagram or Facebook, like especially Instagram. Like so many people are like, hey, like I have this great opportunity, and it seems like really fake because like they're approaching you on like social media, but then you're like, oh, this is like legitimate and real. And so like it makes me want to stay on Instagram for that reason, but then it's also like what is it worth? Like I feel like I scroll on it just like too much, like aimlessly, and it just like occupies time and it doesn't really like fulfill me in any way. So I feel like I should just get off of it.
I would get off of it, but then I wouldn't be a model anymore.
I hear that, Jack. You got that following you have to uphold.
Again, it would be www. Sorry.
Oh no, go. I have a question about another one of her films, but you can go first, Gary, to plug her website.
Yeah, and it's www.shaandin.com.
Two eyes.
Yeah, I said, oh, two eyes. So it would be shaandin.com.
Thanks, Gary.
I'm really interested in the project you did with Vice on Missing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I got to go to Iowa to I guess just follow this young girl named Rosalie Fish, and she's a student and an activist for MMIW. And I guess it was like just kind of like seeing, I guess for me, I think film, I approach film in like the most like curious way, and like what questions I would have about things, and like kind of how I project my own life onto someone, which I guess is like somewhat selfish for sure, but I think it like lends for an interesting lens. And so for me, it was like, how does Rosalie handle like being a student like away from her community for like the first time in her life, while trying to like do this incredible thing of like advocating for MMIW like on her own time, like when she's not like doing homework or like not running track and field for her college or like that sort of thing. And so she like had a really great balance to her life, but it was also like, how can we like, I guess just like honor this image of like a young Native woman as a student as well, because I think there's like not nearly like any of those kind of portrayals done in media today. It's usually like, I guess there's like definitely stereotypes within Indigenous content and that sort of thing. And I think there's like ways to combat that and ways to like show people that maybe this isn't the image that you're looking for. And like, maybe you can like dig a little bit deeper and just like see and honor this person for who they are. And so I think with Missing or the Vice piece, it was all about that. And it was all about like, what are like your concerns today, like being an activist while being a student? Like, how do you maintain that balance? And like, what is like the difficulty of that in like today's world? Like whether, like even just like us talking about Instagram, like we brought that up, like about like painting the red handprint on her face, because she did that like for a run in hoping to like bring awareness to MMIW. She was like listing out names and honoring those people like within her community for her high school state meet. And so there's like ways to do it, but then there's also ways that it can be like completely appropriated like really easily. And so we like Vice, for instance, like really wanted, and it was Levi's too. So it was like a thing in partnership. They really wanted her to like paint the red handprint on her face as a moment and a beat like within the film. But I went and we were like talking to Rosalie and we're like, do you want to do that? Like, what does it feel like to like have to do that for someone? And so it became, that moment became a moment in the film instead, like where it was like talking about like why would you do that? And like, why would you choose not to do that in a moment? Like paint a red handprint on your face. And like, when do you do it for honoring somebody and like doing it for yourself instead of doing it for other people? And so I like to take moments and try to like flip them and like really show that like I guess the expectation of non-Indigenous audiences is to always like exploit and take from Native communities, but like how can you show them that they don't always need that, and they don't always have to take in order to understand, that they can like just witness and like learn from that moment instead of like just being like, I know what she does now, like I know that that's a spiritual moment or that sort of thing, because that can become really harmful to Native communities as well, where their culture like kind of feels like it's put on like this weird pedestal, and like people don't understand it, but they like want the image of it, which is like can be really tough sometimes.
That's
Have
a
you
show.
tried that?
That's a show, Gare. But go ahead. Do you want to ask one more?
Oh, I was just, it brought to the question that maybe I haven't seen you appear in many of your own films. Have you tested the acting scene out?
I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. Like I was in a whole bunch of school plays, and I don't think it was because I was good at acting. I think it was because I could project loudly. And in school plays, they don't have microphones, so you have to like shout without sounding like you're shouting. And so I think I got all the lead roles because I could like project really well. And so I thought I was like a good actor. I definitely wasn't, but yeah.
But
I
now
think
you
like
find yourself in a relationship with kind of a well-exercised actor, and Forrest Goodluck, of course, we all know him from the Revenant, and of course the scary zombie movie we played a couple of years ago at the Santa Fe Independent.
yeah.
I imagine big things to come from this amalgamation.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, I'll leave the acting to him for sure. Like he's a lot better at that, and he'll leave the directing to me. Just kidding.
Well, that's a show, everybody. Thanks so much, you guys. Thanks for joining us, Shaandiin. I want to say before we go that, this is, Shaandiin's a young, Indigenous, local filmmaker, and the future of this business and this art form is really with directors like her. So I'm very happy with this show, and we'll see you next week. We'll be back with author Julia Cameron.